Hello and welcome to another episode of AGEUcational. This is Roy.
I'm Terry.
So this show, we are a brand new podcast, and just what we want to do is strive to bring a lot of topics surrounding aging, healthy aging, things that we can do to age better, things that we can do once we age, and also some things that we can do better to, help slow down that aging process. So we'll be talking about our journey, mine and Terry's, with our parents as well as, in our life. And then we also want to bring on subject matter experts and professionals in different fields in order to give us some good commentary on, other diverse topics. So with that, I'll turn it over to Terry.
Yeah, today we are very excited to have Stevyn Guinnip. She is an exercise physiologist, a certified health and wellness coach, and she is also the founder of Grow Wellthy, Wellthy. She grew up as a financial advisor's daughter, and for over 30 years, she watched her father help many people grow their wealth, their portfolios, to protect their wealth and prepare for retirement. She worked in his office while she was growing up and often wondered why people would save and work hard their entire lives only to get sick or die prematurely. And asked the question, what good is wealth if you don't have your health? Stevyn, welcome to the show. We are so glad that you decided to join us today.
Thank you so much, Terry and Roy. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you can kind of go through your background, your professional background, as well as we'll talk about your personal journey and why you are where you are today.
Of course, yes. I was an athlete in school. I'm 5'10", but I was a gymnast. I never should have been a gymnast, yet I was. And I was
tall.
Yes, I was too tall. And I was a swimmer also. And so I was always very active. And like you said, I grew up in the house of a financial advisor. So I have what I call secondhand knowledge of the financial industry, kind of like secondhand smoke, but it's all all good for you.
It's good.
And I considered my dad to be in a helping industry. He really helped people with their peace of mind as they were aging and taking care of their family members and making sure that they had enough. And I decided to go into a helping industry as well, but on the flip side, which was health as opposed to wealth. And I started out with a master's degree in exercise science, kinesiology, and physiology. And I actually, my first job out of my master's work was working for the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, looking at high blood pressure and the effects of exercise on women, if you could actually exercise your way out of medication. And what was really interesting, I'll just take 1 second to explain this, is that the same study was done on men, and it was enough with men to exercise 3 times a week for 45 minutes in your target heart rate zone, and that would reduce blood pressure enough to get off of medication many times. But with women, it was not true. And that sparked my curiosity. Why? Why could people respond so differently, even across from gender to gender, to the same type of engagement? So I began a career of an exercise physiologist from that point forward, working with all kinds of clients. I think I've counted and tried to calculate over 5,000 client hours of all kinds of people with different diseases, disabilities, goals, helping people lose 100 pounds to helping people who have bleeding disorders to still stay healthy, and corporate wellness and cardiac rehab. So I did that for 20 years. And then I moved to Australia, and I was there in a fitness capacity to launch a kettlebell program. My family and I went. My kids were 4 and 8 at the time, and we left our family here, extended family, and moved to down under. And I'm sorry, did you have a question? Oh,
no, I said, wow, that's
okay. Yeah.
That's
so there's
shock.
many great things about Australia. And one of them is that people seem happier. They seem less stressed. And that was palpable to us coming from the States. So we stayed there about 1.5 years. And then when we moved back, it felt like this heavy blanket of stress kind of fell over us. And, just like the American kind of striving for more all the time and just working harder. And it made me
Right.
really reassess what it is that I do. Because as I said, I worked on everything from the exercise side of things, and then understanding that there are lifestyle factors that affect your health outside of exercise. And it's what I call the low hanging fruit. It's the stuff that everybody can work on, and it doesn't require a lot of activity or effort. And those are the first 3 steps that in my 4-step plan, I guess, is doing the things that don't involve exercise. And so because of that, about 5 years ago, I did a complete 180 on what I do. And instead of trying to get people to move and go to the gym, I now try to get people to just, I guess, address in a really proactive way the lifestyle diseases. What causes those lifestyle diseases? And according to the CDC, there's 7 of them that are the most common. And maybe we can link to that link or something. But the 7 most common have to do with brain diseases, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, those kinds of things that we're all pretty comfortable with or familiar with. But they're lifestyle diseases. And we can do so much in the workplace, at home, with our loved ones to help protect us from going there. So that's why I do what I do now.
Well, nice. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that about other things we can do besides the gym, because I was fixing to have to cut this interview short so I could go get my 45 minutes in and get my blood pressure back down. So we'll take a breather on that. And so, yeah, and it's funny you talk about diabetes, and I was just looking the other day because we have another podcast where we talk about some health eating and things like that. And diabetes is kind of double-edged, because not only is it, I think, number 7 on the list of things that will kill you, but it also is a heavy contributor to number 9, which is, I think, the renal failure. And so between that and the high blood pressure, those are things that we all need to pay more attention to. And, a lot of us, I'll throw myself under the bus and say, sometimes we know we have it, but if we don't actually take our readings or go to the doctor, then everything's okay, because it's not, in the forefront of our mind.
What you don't know. Well,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's easy to kind of ignore it that way, isn't it?
Yeah. But, in this show, I think one thing that really stuck out, one reason why I wanted to reach out to you, is because I really enjoyed your play on Wellth. See, oh my gosh, this conversation. Wellth and wellness. Oh my gosh.
Well, grow wealthy. So
Wellth
Wellth advisor.
WELL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's, it's really a cool play on words, and it goes along with, something we were thinking about, is that, like you said, is that we try very hard to save enough money where we don't outlive that. But unfortunately, nowadays we tend to outlive our wellness probably at very higher rates than we do run out of money.
Yeah, and I think that what you're referring to is what I teach about the health span versus the lifespan. So we might be living longer, but we're not living well longer. And so it's kind of what I've heard said is we live short and we die long. And so it's a long, slow, painful, uncomfortable, expensive kind of meeting toward the end of our lives, when it would really, if we could just kind of correct some of these things in our lives, like our low level movement and sedentariness and our stress and what we're putting into our bodies as far as food goes, we could kind of earn back some of that quality of life, and we could live long, and then we could die short, which is much more appealing to more people. And so I see wealth as being twofold. Wealth is your money, which is kind of like if you were in a car, your wealth, your money would be the gas in the car. How far can it get you? And then that car, your wealth, like WELL, your wellness, would be the actual physical structure of the car itself. So do you have flat tires? Is your oil leaking? Is your engine overheating? Because without one or the other, you're not going to make it that far, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And as we age, that, things just start happening. And that's a concern. I'm getting to that point that it's like, well, what's it going to be like in 20 years? And so I need to, it's been kind of an awakening to start taking better care, getting in better health, because, I mean, you see these guys, and well, we'll just, hate to get political, but we were actually watching the yeah,
Not today.
we were actually watching the inauguration. I'm thinking, Biden is 78 years old and he gets around good. I mean, it hasn't been that many years ago that when you were 65 or 70, you were in the rocking chair and on the cane. And so just to see the, people of age and the way they're out there moving, and I think but it's probably a tribute to the way that they live their life up to that point. I don't think you wake up at 75 and say, today I'm going to get in shape and do all these things. Yeah, you can have some effect, but the real big effect is probably, a life, life of committed to that lifestyle.
Yeah, and I call that the wellness window. And it's roughly speaking between 40 and 60 years old ish, that if you really make wellness a focus, then it's called your next 8,000 days. So life can basically be chopped up into 4 sets of 8,000 days or 22 years. And that middle range, the 40 to 60 year range, is really like, if you do that one well, then your next 8,000 days, which is, your 70s and 80s, you're going to be a lot more spry, healthier, on less medications. And so what I teach clients to do is to prepare now for your next 8,000 days.
That's a great analogy. I mean, that's awesome. And we're talking. Our audience is it's educational, so it's for older, more mature people.
Yeah.
But it's also for their caretakers as well. So this was a great time to have you on and talk about this. Can you talk a little bit about your personal health issue that made you do a little bit of what you're doing?
Of course, yes. Yeah, I was actually, when I was living in Australia, we were on our way, headed back in about 8 weeks. And I ended up with an emergency hysterectomy in Australia in the middle of the night on a holiday. And it was like this big, dramatic, almost die kind of thing because I got septic. And because of that experience, I had to go through 6 weeks of recovery and really strong antibiotics. So immediately, kind of overnight, all my hormones were taken away and all of my gut bacteria was destroyed. And if you know much about health or follow what's kind of happening right now, your gut health really predicts your physical health and long-term chronic disease prevention, on how much good bacteria you've got. And mine was just completely destroyed. And so over the next year, I gained weight like I've never gained before. And that's very indicative of a lot of people who are going through menopause, or they're beyond menopause and their hormones are changing, or maybe men, their testosterone's dropping. All of a sudden, you kind of find yourself like, oh, this isn't the body I had before. It's not responding the way that I'm used to it responding. And so it's kind of like, you have life events, like maybe you have a child or there's a death in the family or you get married. There are those points in your life when you reassess your financial security. It's the same for your health. There are points in your health when you want to reassess and you just want to say, okay, what's changed? How is my body different or unique at this point in life? And what can I do to help it along and make sure that I'm not getting sicker faster than I need to be? And one of the main things that I run across is that, especially for caretakers or even people who are in a care situation, they're being cared for, is that stress goes up, it just skyrockets. And when you've got the cortisol and the stress hormones running around your body, it's almost like they're kind of just pinging and touching everything and damaging cells, and you end up in a worse place than you could have. So sometimes that self-assessment is as simple as like, I'm in a really stressful situation I'm not super happy about. What can I do to reframe that, to create a different mindset, shift my paradigm, or create some things that are going to bring some happiness and joy, either to me, my caregiver, my parent, whatever that is. That's a valid reason for your health to take a nosedive. And people just kind of brush it off and say, oh, well, it's okay. That's not that big of a deal, but it is. And it's important to assess that early and often, like daily.
Yeah, yeah. Caretakers, everybody, they don't think about themselves, and you got to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of somebody else.
Right.
So that it's just so important to do that.
Yeah, and you have to think about the other part is if you don't take care of yourself and you're not there to provide the care for your loved one, who's going to do that? Because a lot of times you may be the person of last resort. There may not be a backup. So we have to think of that for sure. I got some more questions on the caregiver aspect, but one thing you mentioned was our gut health, and so I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I've seen a lot of information about probiotics, and even for men, I think it's generally more. It used to be more suggested for women, but now they're saying, with this gut health, that it's important. So, I found one and was taking it for a while, but then I read some research that said, well, if you take it every day, you're defeating the purpose, because it's been a while since I read that. But anyway, finally I was just like, all right, I don't know what to take it or not to take it. I'm just quitting. So what's kind of what's the science behind the probiotics?
Well, there's two things to keep in mind when you want a healthy gut. One is probiotics, which are the actual bugs themselves, the living organisms. And then there's the prebiotics. And prebiotics are the food for the probiotics. So if you're going to have a healthy colony of this bacteria in your gut biome, then they need to have something to eat that they like to eat. And so you can have the bacteria in your system from a probiotic, but if you're not feeding it well with things like asparagus or apples or onions, those kinds of things that are prebiotics, if you're feeding it with cookies and cakes and packaged who knows what, they're not going to like that food and they're going to die out anyway. So you can be taking a probiotic, but if your diet doesn't support it, it's really not going to do that much for you. The second part of that is there's so many colonies, so many different strains of probiotics that you don't want to stick with the same one. So, finding a bottle that's in the refrigerator section of the health food store, not on the shelf, because they might not be surviving the shelf life. So the refrigerator section, then when that bottle is gone, then get a different kind that's got a different strain, because the health comes in the variety or the diversification, if we want to use money terms, of your gut health. And so having both sides of that is important.
Yeah, the other thing that happened, I guess I got in on this right when the craze started, because this is a little bit of an exaggeration, but at first it would be like the bottle would say, oh, this contains 10 different strains. And then all of a sudden it was ones that, now we contain a gazillion strains, and I don't think call them strains, but anyway, it was just like this huge range all of a sudden that opened up from where it was to where it went. So do we need to pay attention to that number, if it's 10 million, 30 million, or whatever?
The higher the number, the better. Yeah. I mean, just the higher the number, the better. The source is important, that it's a reputable refrigerated source. But yes, I mean, you really do want to stay high as you can on those numbers.
Okay.
And especially if you've had a lifestyle, a lifetime of antibiotics, then it's really important. And sometimes it can take, 2, 3, 4, 5 years even to kind of establish. And it just depends on kind of what the health is. One of the things I deal with my clients a lot is something called, you were talking about like the different diseases earlier, and this does tie in, because if you don't protect your gut health, then your body doesn't absorb the same nutrients in the same way, and it actually can damage your metabolism and By metabolism, I mean like inside of each cell, you've got your mitochondria. That's your powerhouse that uses energy. And there's 3 different kinds of energy. You've got caregivers and you've got people who are being cared for. They also have 3 kinds of energy. And it's important to know if they're working off of a blood sugar energy, maybe they're eating and they've got good blood sugar, and then they can go and do a lot of things. But if they're eating and haven't eaten for a long period of time, they can't work off of blood sugar. They're working off of something called glycogen stores, and that's in your muscle and your liver, and that's like your savings account. It has to dip into your savings account. And then there's one more account that's like your certificates of deposit, your CDs, which is harder to get your hands on, and that's your fat account. So there's fat, there's glycogen stores, and then there's blood sugar. And those are your 3 different systems. And for your body to really have energy that lasts all day long to be able to care for people, you need to be able to utilize all 3 of those and access them. And that comes from, having low stress, great nutrients, and some good low-level movement throughout the day, just to let your body know that it's still alive. So many people just sit sedentary throughout the day. Doesn't matter what it is. If you're in a wheelchair, if you can open and close your hands, if you can raise your arms or do circles. I used to teach a class called Silver Sneakers, and we would just do chair exercises. You actually have a second heartbeat in your calves, a second heart in your calves. And that's kind of a stretch, but when you do toe raises, like go up and down on your toes like this, it's helping to pump that blood back up to your heart. You can do that in a wheelchair or in a chair. Anything that you do helps to keep those systems working better. And I liken it to like my phone, it goes dark if I don't touch it. But if you keep kind of touching the screen, the light stays on. And that's what we want to do. Keep touching the screen. Keep just moving and using the parts of your body, and they will last longer.
Yeah, and they have said that setting is the new smoking, and a lot of us that have more desk jobs now, it just makes it that much harder, especially as we transition into that into the older age. And for me, it's become a big concern because it just of what you said, not being constantly in motion and things like that. But I want to get back to the caregivers for a minute. That
Are you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say that sitting is the new smoking was coined by Dr. Levine of the Mayo Clinic. And his solution to that is called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And basically that's just like a fancy way of saying move more at low levels.
Okay. Yeah, and sometimes it's just like for me, setting an egg timer or a alarm on my phone every 50 minutes to an hour just to stand up, because if not, I can end up sitting in that chair for hours and hours upon end, which I know is bad. But I was going to talk about the caregivers for a minute. It's an important statistic to remember, and I'm not sure if you've seen it or aware of it, but there used to be a stat that about 70% of caregivers who provide care to higher need individuals, they will pass before the person that they're caring for. And so that's another important aspect of this as that caregiver, is that it's very important, to take care of yourself.
Well, a lot of people see taking care of yourself as being selfish. And it's the exact opposite, actually. Your self-care is actually caring for your loved one so that you can take care of them longer. And that paradigm shift is hard for people they're so used to pouring out. They're not used to pouring in.
Right.
But, energy is a limited source. It's not infinite. And you have to allow time for your body to go into what's called your parasympathetic nervous system. And to be able to, it's just like switching the light off on your nervous system, letting your body rest, letting it digest its food and repair. Rest, digest, and repair. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. And most caregivers, I've seen my family be in caregiver roles. I'm not in that role myself yet, but I've seen it firsthand, and it's easy to stay in the on position all the time because the person needs so much care, and you want to make sure you're doing it right and you're taking care of your life. And a lot of caregivers are taking care of two directions, maybe parents and children still at some level, and they get kind of sandwiched in between there. And the burnout in that will lead to illness if they don't check it and take good care of themselves.
Yeah, and that's what we talk about a lot. I mean, because we're the sandwich generation. We're in the sandwich arena right now. My daughters are 22 and 28, and then my mom, she just turned 86 this past fall, and thankfully she has been pretty healthy up till now. Well, and she is healthy now, but she did have a stay in the hospital in October, and she's been doing really well on her recovery as far as her physical and occupational therapies and all of that. And she's in a retirement home, so she's still able to do that, which we're very happy about. And she is too. She's ready to not be. I mean, she's ready to be on her own and independent again. But she had to build back up to that. And
Right.
It was a group effort.
Mhm. Yeah, and I don't have it anymore. I used to have a thing hanging over my desk, and so we can talk about the basic building blocks of health. Is number one, it's eat right, and eat well-rounded, nutritious, not just always out of the fast food window, but drinking our water, and then also getting anywhere between, I guess, 6 to 8 hours sleep, depending on who you listen to with that. And then of course, the exercise is stay moving. And I'll just get your opinion on that. I've always felt like those were kind of the fundamental building blocks to being well.
Yeah, I think that those are great categories of being well. I think if you could kind of stand those on a foundation of awareness and curiosity. So being aware of what you're currently doing, and then being curious about what something else might look like, because everyone kind of knows maybe what they should be doing, but to internalize that and pose the question to yourself that says, I wonder what it would feel like to eat beans, or I wonder what it would feel like to go to bed by 10 o'clock. And just by posing that question, your brain is engaged, your subconscious mind engages, and it wants to find out the answer to that. So it's almost like the software program in your brain that's going to make it happen. So that's why I always say awareness and curiosity first. Yeah. And then, yes, I recommend, the Daily Dozen is a free app that you can get on Google Play or the iTunes store. And it's made by Dr. Greger of nutritionfacts.org. And that's a great thing for everyone to just download to their phone and see, because eating a variety of foods is sometimes hard to quantify. Like, what does that mean?
Yes,
and that gives you all the best categories, and you can kind of check them off, and you can see, oh, it's been a week and I haven't had anything green. Or when was the last time I had a cruciferous vegetable like broccoli, cauliflower, those kinds of things, because they have different health properties. And so I find that to be a really useful tool to help people actually make that one happen.
I'm going to get a dictionary. I'm going to get a dictionary out to see what
Oh, cruciferous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can spell it.
Yeah. I was going to kind of comically challenge you on that last point about if we ask ourselves the question, we subconsciously, or we'll see. As I told Terry, I was sure wondering what it would be like to win that lotto last night. And we only got 2 numbers.
We won $8.
I'll try again tonight.
Almost. Almost. Pretty close.
The other thing I think that I think we can do better again, and I'll throw myself under the bus a little bit, is that we can be kind to ourselves, that we're not going to do all this stuff perfect every day. We've got to just make an attempt to do the best we can. And Terry was one of her daily motivations the other day was something about being in the moment. And you were talking about that. The awareness is, if you're eating, sit there and think about what we're eating and not be, like, and she was telling me that as I had 25 other things I was thinking about. So, we can be aware and be in the moment, but we can also be kind when we do trip up and just realize, hey, today's behind us. It's nothing we can do about what's past, but we can look to the future and try to, do better tomorrow. And I think we caregivers can be really, really hard on themselves. A lot of them never feel like they can do enough. And so anyway, just
Yeah.
another little tidbit, I think.
Well, what's interesting is there's a place for guilt in life. If you say something mean that you shouldn't have, if you kill somebody, like there's reasons to feel guilty, but food is not one of them. Food should never be a source of guilt. It's just it's a source of like curiosity. We'll go back to that again. Oh, I wonder what made me want to eat that. And then you can start to understand the underlying effects of what's prompting you to do that. I was talking to my group coaching guys today, and I was telling them, it's one of them wanted to eat a bagel. And I'm telling you, on this daily dozen list, there's no bagels on that list. But he's like, I just really want the bagel. And I'm like, eat the bagel, eat the bagel, give yourself permission and enjoy it. Like that
Right.
feeling of enjoyment is going to it's going to treat your health so much better than a feeling of guilt, because then it sets you up for a bad hormone response. And you just don't want that hormone in there. And so if you're going to have the brownie with the ice cream and the whipped cream on top, like I had last night, then give yourself permission, enjoy it, taste it, love it, and then know when you've had enough and move on to the next thing. So I think that that's what people like: bad food, good food, guilt, willpower. And we just need to toss all that thinking out the door and just be aware. I always tell everybody, ask yourself 3 questions every day, 3 questions all the time. Why do I want to eat? And then just know the reason. Either you're hungry, or you just want it, or there's some sort of craving, or you're bored. Like there's always an answer. And sometimes just knowing what that answer is enough to free you from that. So that's one question. Why do I want to eat? The second question is, when was the last time I moved my body? Like if you're just kind of asking yourself that periodically, when did I move last? And let that be your prompt to do something, anything. And then the third one is, what is my stress level right now? How do I feel? Am I tense? Am I breathing out of my chest up here? Am I breathing from my belly? Am I relaxed? Those 3 questions will take you farther than any program or exercise membership.
And that's one thing I did leave off my list, was to breathe. And people used to laugh because I had that written up there, but it's been pointed out to me over time, and not necessarily, it doesn't have to be stress. It can be intensity, but I will hold my breath, or, and then catch yourself. But breathing is important. I think that's a huge part of, I think it's a huge part of yoga, is that, learning the breathing and breath control and things like that. And it can really do wonders for our health.
There's a Breathe app also that's really good.
Yeah, breathing is yeah, right. Yeah, breathing is one of those things that can actually change your chemicals. So I don't have to do anything except, and my chemicals in my brain will change to a stress response. Or I can breathe from my belly and I can actually reduce my heart rate, my blood pressure, and my stress hormones as well. And opposite is true too. I'll just step back so maybe you can see a little bit better. If I stand in a power pose like this with my feet square and my arms on my hips for 2 minutes, it raises your testosterone and it lowers your cortisol, your stress hormone. And that's a perfect way to get yourself ready to go in and talk to your doctor and advocate for yourself or for your loved one, because you're not intimidated. All of a sudden you're standing full and strong in your hormones, and it actually changes the way that you think and come across. If you're going to go get a job interview, stand like that for 2 minutes, and then you will have the confidence that you didn't have before. So your body can change your mind, and your mind can change your body. It's so
Right.
interconnected.
Yeah, it really is. I was going to say, mind, body, and soul, that it's all, they all have their part in our wellness.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Stephen, I want to thank you for being on the show. I mean, it's been a great talk, a lot of great information. So if you would,
easy to understand.
yeah, what is something that you use in your daily life that could be, an app or a habit, something that you do that you feel like really perpetuates your wellness that you just couldn't do without on a daily basis?
Yeah, well, one that I use all the time is that Daily Dozen app. I like to check in on my own, on myself, and see, how many I'm getting. There's 24 possible check boxes in that app. I like to try to make sure I'm getting at least 15 of those every day and not leaving out any category over a 3-day period. And that pretty much covers your nutrition. So that one I love. I also love tracking devices. Some people don't love them, but I do. So I have this one on. It's called a Wise Band, WYZE. It's cheap. It's like $29. You can get a Fitbit, which is more expensive. Those are good too. And basically it buzzes me if I haven't moved for a while. So if I forget, it's my reminder. And then at the end of the day, like I'm at 5,000 steps for today, which I don't want to be that low. Anything under 5,000 is considered to be sedentary by researcher standards. So I use this as a benchmark and just say, oh, I probably should go for a walk after dinner tonight. I haven't really moved that much. And it's a good reminder.
Wow, 5,000. Okay.
Okay, you asked. That's awesome.
Right. Well, tell everybody, who would your client be? What can you do for them? And of course, how could they reach out and get a hold of you?
Okay, great. Yeah, as the name of my company indicates, Grow Wellthy. I am in more of the finance space, so a lot of my clients are financial professionals, or they're financially savvy in some way. They understand long-term planning. They understand kind of what it takes to have goals that are in the future with short-term wins and long-term dividends and that kind of thing. So mostly people who understand financial concepts and want to apply that to their health, so they can prepare themselves for retirement. So my website is growwellthy.com, grow and then WELLTHY.com. And if anybody is interested, thinks they might be a good fit for my Wellth Academy, they can fill out some information for a free wellness audit. I'm happy to go over their numbers, do a free consultation for them, and give them some really great information that they can either go work with on their own, or they could potentially work with me on.
Okay, great. Well, reach out to Stephen. I'm sure she can help you stretch your wellness to, kind of coincide with your lifespan as well. We don't want to outlive that for sure. So that's going to do it for this episode of AGEUcational. Of course, you can find us on all the major podcast platforms, iTunes, or you change to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and a whole bunch more. Also, you can find us on Facebook. We do have a group. We do like to try to stimulate discussion there. Check us out on the website at www.AGEUcational, AGEUcational. Got through that.com. And, we post our podcast there. Also, check us out on YouTube. We'll be posting the videos of the interviews there as well. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other. This is Roy.
We appreciate it, Stephen. Thank you so much.
You're
This is
welcome,
Terry,
guys.
signing off.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.